The entire agri-food sector bears the brunt of the climate crisis.
Pour parler d'agriculture et d'Europe à la jeunesse.
Proteste der Landwirte zeigen, wie wichtig der strategische Dialog ist.
La PAC, c'est plus du tiers du budget total de l'Union européenne.
We have to find a new consensus on the future of agriculture.
If you've been tuning in over the last few years, then you will have definitely heard this. Again and again, farmers frustrated by something known as the administrative burden, the red tape. The hours farmers spend filling in forms, applying for subsidies, without which, given the low prices of agricultural products, they couldn't survive. The insecurity surrounding the payments and the often incomprehensible rules, at least from their perspective. Welcome to episode 59 of Food for Europe. In this episode, we're looking at the European Commission's response to farmers' discontent, the simplification package, designed to make farmers' lives easier. The package is on the table, but for now it's a proposal by the Commission which still needs approval by the other European institutions. We first spoke with Bence, Deputy Head of Unit for Economic Sustainability at the Commission's Directorate General for Agriculture and Rural Development, who pointed out that there's an additional rationale for the package.
There was this report by Mario Draghi on the future of European competitiveness, and that one made a very clear link between competitiveness and the cost of regulatory burden, especially for SMEs, and as we all know, many of the agricultural operators, farmers, are SMEs. So they are really suffering from excessive reporting obligations, burden in investing, and so on and so forth, more than maybe a bigger entity. And as part of it, because agriculture is very much part of this road towards increased competitiveness, we have had a vision on the future of agriculture and farming. And that one, in fact, very much acknowledged that we need to boost the sector's competitiveness. We need to build down administrative burden. And then it already launched a certain number of avenues, such as innovation, digitalization, the fact that farmers should spend their time farming and not filling out papers.
So what is it that you hear from farmers?
Yeah, what you hear from farmers indeed is very often that they have to spend a lot of time filling out the various forms. What they are also questioning themselves about is that they are farming in a certain way, which they feel is virtuous, is fine, and then you have a piece of legislation or somebody coming there and saying that, but I agree it's virtuous, but we still have rules on how you do virtuous farming, and okay, you have to adapt. This is the rule.
Bence, we'll come back to you a little later to discuss what's in the package. For now, let's take a closer look at what farmers are experiencing and hear from the farming industry about the complexity of regulations. Farmers often turn to agricultural advisors to help them put applications together. John Greaney is a project advisor at Teagasc, the Irish Agriculture and Food Development Authority. John has heard from dozens of farmers over the years who have struggled with applications.
I think it's the complexity of the CAP rules and the schemes. So farmers rely on subsidy right across Europe, but unfortunately, farmers can see these as being time-consuming in relation to making sure they're compliant. They can often feel that the paperwork can be a little bit complex, so they rely on the likes of ourselves in Teagasc or an advisor, which obviously brings a financial cost as well. Ultimately, they're spending more time keeping records up to date and whatnot, so this might have an impact on profitability as well if they're taken away from their day-to-day tasks.
John, as to the complexity, it's of course the case that the EU sets the overall framework, while the member states add the detailed CAP rules. But what does that look like on the ground?
So we would have an environmental scheme here at acres. And look, where they struggled was ultimately, with the paperwork. They were quite unsure maybe of what they were getting themselves into. So the requirements for detailed field assessments, the photo submissions, mapping, ongoing monitoring of maybe what tasks might be done.
John, ultimately this is about subsidies. So once the paperwork is completed, how do people get their payments?
Delays are a big thing here. So in relation to that scheme that I alluded to, acres, there's 54,000 farmers in Ireland signed up to that scheme. Okay, so we're still waiting for a subsection of them farms still haven't been paid for 2023, a balancing payment. So like if people haven't been paid for 2023, they subsequently haven't been paid for 24, and we're in 25. You know, we're halfway through the scheme.
That's a long time to have to wait. What does that mean then for the farmers?
There's a lot of frustration there as well. Like, you know, farmers ultimately, they just want to farm their land. But if they're signing up to this action-based or results-based environmental scheme, you know, where they're going to be paid for carrying out certain actions, you know, and they implement them, and then subsequently the rules or the regulations change. One, they've changed their farming system. Two, they haven't been rewarded for maybe what they've implemented on the farm. And three, they haven't been paid to date.
John, thank you very much. Let's hear now from someone who deals with this day in and day out. Ljungqvist is a young farmer from Sweden who's in the process of taking over the family farm.
We have been focusing on dairy production for generations now. Right now we have about 120 milking cows in a barn with 2 robots. Last year we also started branching out into beef cattle. The idea is to keep the bull calves from our own herd, so that would be around 140 in total, and raise them for slaughter.
So what's your experience with the paperwork?
Personally, what I find most annoying is how complicated the process is. Forms are very long and detailed, and eventually you just give up and call an advisor to help put together a proper application. But of course that costs money too, so yeah. And there's also the stress of not knowing whether you'll actually get the full amount of support or money, or if there will be any cuts in the subsidies, or if the money will come at all. Yeah.
And where does that leave you then?
You eventually feel kind of stupid, because it's not that it's extensively hard. You know, the crop application you fill in each year to get the crop subsidies, each and every farmer knows what they grow on each field. Everyone knows that. But even though if that is the case, you have to many times get an advisor to make sure that the application is correctly filled, and that you actually get all the money that you could get. And I think that's where the problem lies, that you feel like you should be able to do this by yourself, but it's just very complicated forms, and not a whole lot of information to find about the forms.
So how do you find the information you need?
Some of the support and subsidies you can get, you hear it, you know, your neighbor might talk about something, so you don't get the information out to the farmers as good. And maybe we're just bad at finding the information, but oftentimes I would call Lovisa and ask her, would this work if I was looking to do this investment? And then she says, yeah, I think that will work, or no, that's you could probably do that with another application. And then we generally ask, is it worth the hassle? Do you think we are able to get the support?
Carl, thank you very much. We'll come back to you later on. Carl mentioned Lovisa, who helps him with his applications. Lovisa Filipsson is an agricultural advisor in his region. We asked her about her role.
So the main fields are most application for EU money. So help the farmers make the application, and they come to me every year, and then we together do the application.
And what do you hear most often from farmers?
The main frustration is more they want to do the right thing, but they don't know how to do it. And another part is that they have so much feeling and actually being controlled a lot. It can be from the same control organ, or indifferent. It could be the milking program or the animal program and the field program in same month, and they're controlling the same thing.
Can you give us an example of that?
One farmer called me this in Monday, and he was just, I got this letter. I maybe have done something wrong, but I don't understand or what or how do I correct it. And then he calls me, and I can log in by my computer and read the letter when I have him on the phone. And after checking carefully, I could see that he had no errors, and he didn't need to do anything. But the way the letter was formulated, it says that, you have these errors, you have this mistake, then you need to come back to us, otherwise we're going to have a discount of your payments and yada, yada, yada. And he was so worried and didn't understand how he could correct something.
Lovisa, thank you for sharing that perspective. Let's bring Bence Major from the European Commission back into the conversation. What are some of the proposals in the Commission simplification package? And can you give us some examples of how the changes might help farmers?
For instance, he's an organic farmer. You have certain conditions which are called, in our jargon, good agricultural and environmental conditions that each farmer has to fulfill today to get the full payments, and some of which are, in fact, as I said, environmental and very much overlap with the organic legislation. So you have an organic farmer who does everything that is necessary to be certified, and at the same time he sees slightly different rules he needs to respect in order to get his full payment. So this is where we tried, for instance, to simplify, to say, no, if you are an organic farmer, you are, as we say, deemed compliant with a certain number of these standards.
Lovisa spoke about the frustration around controls. What's in the package about those controls?
Indeed, there is a point which encourages member states to try or to aim at a situation where they can organize their controls in a way that the farmer is only subject to one on-the-spot control. Because in the CAP what you have is that for many payments, you have a so-called first administrative control. This is when you fill your request or your claim for payments. There is a sort of paper-based control. If everything is right, you are still alive, and so on and so forth. But it's okay. It's for good reasons. It's for defending, as I said, the taxpayer money. And then you have, indeed, based on the risk, so-called on-the-spot controls. These are the famous visits by auditors from the member states who check if indeed everything is fine on the farm. And this is where we try to encourage member states to move towards one control maximum per year.
We heard John Greaney from Ireland earlier, and he mentioned the payments. So Bence, what will change with regard to payments?
The farmer sometimes wondering about the amount of payment. And there, in fact, you have a win-win, because we have what we call lump sum payments, which are way easier for the member state because they don't have to calculate whether, you should get 848 euros and it's 948. It allows the member state to say, you are a small farmer, we'll give you a flat rate of, today it's set at 1,250, but in future we propose to increase this possibility.
Bence, I asked Carl, the farmer from Sweden, what he might like to see in the package. Let's hear what he said.
What I would like to see is that the Commission would already have a digital platform ready with a very simple application form for the whole EU, so that, it would just be a very simple user-friendly platform. That would be my dream. And maybe this platform would actually just contain the data of your farm. You would have a ground data. So when you would open up this platform, you would have my farm. All the prerequisite information would already be there. So amount of cows and milk they produce, all that information could already be in there. And then if anything changed, if we would grow, get more cows or whatever, we would go in and change that actively. But all the ground information would be there. And that would, I think, really help with a lot of other applications and forms.
So Bence, what's in the package concerning technology developments? And it's a complaint that we often hear. that farmers have to report the same data over and over again.
The source of this issue that the farmer has to give the same data to different places is the fact that in member states you have different systems, different bodies operating, and sometimes indeed they need the same data. And what we want to help with this proposal, where we want to encourage member states to invest efforts, is what we call interoperability. So it's basically the various systems in the member states speaking to each other, communicating, exchanging data, and then if you reach that, it's enough to give the data once because it's there and it's available to the different bodies.
So last question. All these proposals and many more, when can farmers expect to see them implemented?
Yes, I can tell you that on the Commission side, we really did our utmost to ensure that farmers can already benefit from these simplifications in 2026. I admit it takes time to implement things in the CAP, so we made our proposal in May, and if everything goes well, this should be available in 2026, but you still have a number of steps because the Commission is only proposing, and the ones approving and giving the final shape to the package are member states united in the Council and the members of the European Parliament who have been elected by European citizens.
Bence, thank you very much. The European legislative process is underway. It might look a little complex, but hopefully it won't take too long to see the changes implemented. So that's all we have time for in episode 59 of Food for Europe. Thank you very much to all of our guests and the many more we had the chance to talk to in the process. We'll be back soon with more on European agriculture, rural development and food, so stay tuned. And bon appétit!
The entire agri-food sector bears the brunt of the climate crisis.
Pour parler d'agriculture et d'Europe à la jeunesse.
Proteste der Landwirte zeigen, wie wichtig der stratégische Dialog ist.
La PAC, c'est plus du tiers du budget total de l'Union européenne.
We have to find a new consensus on the future of agriculture.